You touch that kid again, I swear to God. Tank's voice cracked through the desert air like a whip, his massive frame blocking the convenience store entrance as Ryan collapsed against the ice machine, blood dripping from his split lip onto the sun-bleached concrete. The boy's eyes, wide, terrified, 18 years old, but looking 12 in that moment, darted between Tank and the highway like he was calculating whether he could still run, whether anyone in this godforsaken town would actually help him, or if this was just another trap. Before we dive deeper into what happened next, hit that subscribe button right now. This story gets darker, more intense, and you need to see how it ends. Comment below with your city. I want to know how far this story travels. Now let's get back to that gas station in Dust Haven, because what Tank didn't know yet was that helping Ryan would pull him and his brothers into something far worse than a simple beating. 2 hours earlier, Tank had been thinking about nothing more complicated than whether the gas station would have cold beer. The ride from Reno had been long hot, and his throat felt like sandpaper. Cutter rode beside him, quiet as always, his scarred hands steady on the handlebars. Ridge brought up the rear, younger than both of them, still eager in a way that made Tank feel ancient at 43. "Pull in here," Tank called over the engine, noise pointing at the faded shell sign. "Need to stretch before we hit Vegas." The gas station was the kind of place that time forgot single-story paint peeling one pump that looked older than Tank's bike. A bell chimed when they killed their engines, and the silence that followed felt heavy, oppressive. Desert towns always had that quality, like the heat pressed down on everything, including sound. "Place gives me the creeps," Ridge muttered, pulling off his helmet. "Everything gives you the creeps," Cutter said, his first words in 50 miles. Tank was halfway to the door when he heard it, a soft pain sound, almost like an animal. He stopped, hand on the door handle, listening. There it was again, coming from the side of the building. "You hear that?" he asked. Cutter nodded, already moving. The three of them rounded the corner in formation, instinct taking over. What they found made Tank's blood run cold. The kid was crumpled against the wall, one arm wrapped around his ribs, the other hanging at an odd angle. His face was a mess, blood from his nose, a cut above his eye, still bleeding freely, his lower lip split so badly Tank could see teeth through it. But it was his eyes that got Tank. Those eyes held a terror that went beyond physical pain. "Hey," Tank said, dropping to a crouch, keeping his voice soft. "Easy, kid. We're not going to hurt you." Ryan flinched anyway, tried to scoot backward, and gasped when the movement jarred his injured arm. "Don't move," Cutter said, kneeling on the other side. His voice had that command quality, the one that came from years of being a combat medic before the club. "Let me see that arm." "Please," Ryan whispered, and his voice shook so badly the word was almost unintelligible. "Please," they said, "if I told anyone." "Who said?" Ridge asked, but Tank shot him a look that shut him up. "Nobody's going to hurt you," Tank repeated. "What's your name?" "Ryan." The kid swallowed hard, winced. "Ryan Castellano." "Okay, Ryan, I'm Tank. This is Cutter and Ridge. We're going to help you, but you got to let Cutter look at that arm first. Can you do that?" Ryan nodded barely, and Cutter moved in with practiced efficiency. Tank watched the kid's face as Cutter examined him. Every time Cutter touched a new injury, Ryan's eyes flickered with fresh fear. But not fear of them. Fear of something else. Someone else. "Broken," Cutter said flatly. "Radius clean break. Ribs are probably cracked. Kid needs a hospital." "No," Ryan jerked away, crying out when the movement sent pain through his body. "No hospital. They'll know I told." "Told what?" Tank asked. "Ryan, who did this to you." The kid's face crumpled. For a second, Tank thought he wouldn't answer, thought the fear would keep him silent. But then Ryan started talking, and the words came out in a rush, tripping over each other in their hurry to escape. "Brandon Kowalski and his crew, 5 of them. They cornered me outside the library, said I was talking to Katie, said I needed to learn respect, needed to understand how things work in this town." Ryan's breath hitched. "I tried to leave, but Marcus grabbed me, held my arms, and Brandon, he kept hitting me, kept saying I was nothing, I was garbage, and then Nick, he twisted my arm until I heard it crack, and..." "Jesus," Ridge breathed. "Where do you live?" Tank asked. "Your parents." "Just my mom and sister." Fresh tears cut through the blood on Ryan's face. "They don't know I'm here. Mom thinks I'm at the library. But Brandon," he said, Ryan's voice dropped to a whisper raw with terror. He said, "If I told anyone, If I went to the police, they'd hurt them. They'd hurt Lily. She's only 7. He described her tank. He described what she was wearing today, said he knew which window was her bedroom, said he could get in anytime, and Tank felt rage bloom in his chest, hot and sharp. He'd seen a lot of things in his years with the club, done things he wasn't proud of, but threatening a 7-year-old girl crossed a line he didn't even know existed until that moment. How old are these kids? Cutter asked, still examining Ryan with clinical detachment, though Tank could see the muscle jumping in his jaw. Brandon's 19. The others are 17, 18. Ryan hesitated. They run with Frank Delacroix. The name hung in the air like a curse. Ridge whistled low. Tank exchanged a look with Cutter. You know that name? Ryan asked, catching their reaction. Know of it, Tank said carefully. Frank Delacroix had a reputation that extended well beyond Dust Haven. Drugs mostly, but also extortion, intimidation, the kind of small-town tyranny that flourished in places where the law was stretched too thin to care. He's the one giving orders. I don't know, Ryan said. Maybe. Brandon acts like he owns the town. Everyone's scared of him. He deals for Frank, that's what people say. Nobody talks about it, but everyone knows. Cutter sat back on his heels. Kid needs medical attention. That arm needs setting, and I want to make sure his ribs didn't puncture anything. I told you I can't. There's a clinic in town, Tank interrupted. Not a hospital. Small place doctor. There owes me a favor. She won't ask questions, won't call anyone. But Ryan, you're hurt bad. You need help. Ryan looked between the three of them, and Tank could see the war happening behind his eyes. Fear versus pain, silence versus survival. What about my mom? Just reaching an ass finally. Be right to mine. What about Lily? We'll handle it, Tank said and meant it. One step at a time. First we get you fixed up, then we figure out the rest. You don't understand, Ryan said, desperation creeping into his voice. Frank controls this whole town. The sheriff, the mayor, half the businesses, he's got his hand in everything. And if you go after Brandon, Frank will come after you, and he doesn't play around. Neither do we, Ridge said, his young face hard. Tank helped Ryan to his feet, supporting most of his weight. The kid was light, too light, like he'd been skipping meals. Up close, Tank could see more details that made his anger grow finger-shaped bruises on Ryan's neck, defensive wounds on his good hand, a boot print on his ribs, visible through his torn shirt. When did this happen? Tank asked as they made their way to the bikes. About an hour ago. I ran hid in the desert until I thought they were gone. Came here because... Ryan's voice broke. Because I didn't know where else to go. Can't go home like this. Mom would freak out, would call the police, and then Brandon would... He won't do anything, Tank said firmly. Not anymore. They got Ryan situated on the back of Tank's bike cutter, wedging himself behind to keep the kid steady. Ridge led the way into town, and as they rode, Tank's mind raced. This wasn't club business. This wasn't their territory, wasn't their fight. The smart thing would be to drop Ryan at the clinic, maybe drop an anonymous tip to the police, and get the hell out of Dust Haven before Frank Delacroix even knew they'd been there. But Tank had never been good at doing the smart thing, and there was something about Ryan, the terror in his eyes, the way he'd whispered about his little sister, that hit Tank in a place he'd thought was long dead. The clinic was on the edge of town, a converted house with a hand-painted sign. Tank knew Dr. Sarah Reeves from years back, a chance encounter on the highway when her car had broken down and he'd stopped to help. She'd patched him up more than once since then, no questions asked, no judgment rendered. She met them at the door, took one look at Ryan, and ushered them inside without a word. Examination room now, she said, all business. You three stay in the waiting area. Tank started. I know, no police, no records, but I need to work, and you need to let me. She paused, softened slightly. He'll be okay, Tank, but someone worked him over good. This wasn't random. We know, Cutter said quietly. They waited in a room with outdated magazines and a water cooler that hummed too loud. Tank paced. Ridge sat with his leg bouncing, nervous energy radiating off him. Cutter remained still, but Tank knew him well enough to recognize the tension in his shoulders. We're really doing this? Ridge asked after 10 minutes of silence. Doing what? Tank asked, though he knew. Going after them, after Frank's crew. Tank stopped pacing, looked at his youngest brother. You got a problem with that? No. Ridge met his eyes. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page, because if we do this, if we go after one of Frank's dealers, we're starting something. something that might not end clean. Kid's 18, Cutter said, speaking up for the second time. Could have been killed. They threatened a 7-year-old. What page do you need to be on? Ridge held up his hands. I'm in. Just making sure you both understand what we're walking into. The examination room door opened. Dr. Reeves emerged, stripping off gloves, her face grim. His arms' set ribs are taped. No internal bleeding that I can detect, but he needs rest. Lots of it. She crossed her arms. Someone beat that boy with intent. Whoever did it knew what they were doing, knew how to hurt him without leaving anything that would show up on a casual look. If he'd gone home to his mother like this, if she'd just given him some ice and aspirin, he might have died from internal injuries she couldn't see. How long until he can move? Tank asked. He can move now, but he shouldn't. He needs at least a week of bed rest, maybe 2. And he's terrified, Tank. He wouldn't tell me who did it, but when I mentioned calling his mother, he nearly had a panic attack. We'll handle it, Tank said. Dr. Reeves studied him for a long moment. You're planning something. We're planning to make sure nobody hurts that kid again. Frank Delacroix owns half this town, she said quietly, including the sheriff. You go after one of his people, you'll have the whole system coming down on you. Then they can come, Tank said. We'll be ready. She sighed, shook her head. You're going to get yourself killed one of these days with that hero complex. Maybe, Tank agreed, but not today. They brought Ryan out to the waiting room. He looked smaller, somehow diminished by the clean bandages and the sling on his arm. His face was cleaned up, the cuts treated, but the fear in his eyes hadn't diminished at all. Hey, Tank said gently. How you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, Ryan said, attempting a weak smile that didn't reach his eyes. Dr. Reeves says I'm supposed to rest, but I can't. I need to get home, need to make sure Mom and Lily are okay. We'll check on them, Tank said. But first you need to tell us everything. Names, addresses, where these guys hang out. Everything you know about Brandon and his crew. Ryan's face paled. I told you if Frank finds out I talked. Frank's not gonna find out, Cutter said, his voice flat and certain. And even if he does, he's gonna have bigger problems than one scared kid. Ryan looked between them, and Tank could see the exact moment the kid made his decision, the moment he chose to trust them, to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone could actually stand up to Brandon Kowalski and Frank Delacroix and survive. Okay, Ryan whispered. Okay, I'll tell you everything. And he did. For the next 20 minutes, Ryan laid it all out. How Brandon Kowalski ran a crew of 5 guys, all between 17 and 19, all dealing for Frank. How they controlled the high school, collecting protection money from students, selling pills and weed in the parking lot, terrorizing anyone who crossed them. How Brandon had taken a liking to Katie Marsh, decided she was his, and when Ryan had talked to her in the library, just talked nothing more, Brandon had decided Ryan needed to be taught a lesson. He didn't even care that I wasn't doing anything wrong, Ryan said, his voice hollow. He wanted to hurt someone, and I was there. It was like it was fun for him. Like hurting me made him feel powerful. Tank felt that rage building again, hotter now, focused. Where do they hang out? There's an old trailer park on the east side of town. Sunset Mesa, but everyone calls it the Dead Zone. Brandon's got a trailer there, number 43. That's where they deal, from where they take people when, Ryan swallowed hard, when they want to hurt them without anyone seeing. And Frank? Tank asked. Where's he? I don't know. Nobody knows where Frank lives. He's like a ghost. People see him around, but he's never in one place long. Brandon reports to him, but I don't know how or when. Ridge pulled out his phone, started making notes. Tank could see the tactical mind at work. His youngest brother might be eager, but he'd learned to think like a soldier, to plan before acting. What about the sheriff? Cutter asked. Dr. Reeves said Frank owns him. That true? Ryan nodded miserably. Sheriff Hartley. He's been on Frank's payroll for years. Everyone knows it. You can't go to the cops here. They'll just tell Frank, and then... He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Tank's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a text from Razor the Silver Butte chapter president. Where you at meetings in 2 hours? He'd forgotten about the meeting. Forgotten about Vegas, about club business, about everything except the kid sitting in front of him with his arm in a sling and terror in his eyes. Tank typed back, delayed, handle it without me. The response came quick. This better be good. It is. Tank sent and put the phone away. So what now? Ryan asked, his voice small. What do I do? Tank crouched down so he was eye-level with the kid. Now you trust us. We're going to take care of this, but I need you to stay here with Dr. Reeves for a few hours. Can you do that? But my mom. Give me your address. We'll check on her and your sister, make sure they're safe. We'll tell her you're helping a friend, that you'll be home later. She doesn't need to see you like this. And we don't need Brandon getting word that you're hurt and talking. Ryan hesitated, then rattled off an address on Maple Street. Tank committed it to memory. One more thing, Tank said. This Katie girl, the one Brandon's got his eye on. She in danger. Ryan's face went pale. I didn't even think, oh God, if Brandon thinks she likes me, if he thinks she encouraged me to talk to her. Where does she live? I don't know. She's in my English class, but we just talked about books. That's all I swear. Panic was rising in Ryan's voice. You have to warn her, you have to. We will, Tank said firmly. What's her last name? Marsh? Katie Marsh. She works at the diner downtown after school. The Silver Spoon. Tank stood, looked at his brothers. They both nodded. They were in all the way. Dr. Reeves, Tank called. Can you keep an eye on Ryan for a few hours? She appeared from the back room. I can, but Tank, be careful. Frank's people are dangerous. So are we, Tank said and meant it. Outside, the desert sun was starting its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The three of them stood by their bikes, and for a moment nobody spoke. So, Ridge finally said, we're really doing this. We're really doing this, Tank confirmed. First we check on Ryan's family, make sure they're safe. Then we find this Katie girl, warn her. And then, he paused, let the words settle. Then we go have a conversation with Brandon Kowalski. And if Frank shows up, Cutter asked. Tank met his eyes. Then we have a conversation with Frank too. They mounted up engines, roaring to life in the quiet street. As they pulled away from the clinic, Tank caught sight of Ryan watching from the window, his face pressed against the glass, looking like he was watching his last hope ride away. Don't worry, kid, Tank thought. We're coming back. And when we do, Brandon Kowalski is going to wish he'd never laid a hand on you. The ride to Maple Street took 15 minutes. Ryan's house was small, well-kept, with flowers in the front yard and a bike in the driveway, probably Lily's. Tank felt his chest tighten at the sight. Normal people living normal lives with no idea that a monster had threatened their 7-year-old daughter. They parked down the street, Tank approaching the door alone, while Cutter and Ridge kept watch. A woman answered, mid-30s, tired eyes, wearing scrubs with cartoon characters on them. A nurse maybe, or a hospital tech. Mrs. Castellanos, Tank asked, trying to look as non-threatening as a 6'3" biker could look. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't close the door. Yes. My name's Tank. Your son Ryan asked me to check on you. He's helping a friend with a project, might be late getting home. Suspicion flickered across her face. Ryan didn't mention anything about staying late. It was last minute, Tank said smoothly. Friends having car trouble, Ryan's helping him out. He's a good kid, wanted to make sure you didn't worry. Mrs. Castellano studied him for a long moment. Is he okay? The question caught Tank off guard. Yes, ma'am, he's fine, because he's been scared lately. Jumpy. Won't tell me why, but a mother knows when her child is frightened. Her voice hardened. If someone's bothering him, if they are, Tank interrupted gently, we'll handle it. I promise you that. Something in his voice must have convinced her. She nodded slowly. Tell him to be home by 9. And tell him, she paused, tell him his mom loves him. I will, Tank said. As he walked back to the bikes, he caught sight of a small face in an upstairs window. Lily watching with wide eyes. 7 years old, just like Ryan said. Innocent, unaware that someone had threatened to hurt her. Not on my watch, Tank thought fiercely. Not ever. They're safe, he told Cutter and Ridge. For now, let's go find Katie Marsh. The Silver Spoon Diner was exactly what Tank expected: chrome and vinyl checkered floors. A jukebox in the corner playing country music from the 50s. It was the dinner rush, the place packed with families and teenagers. Katie was easy to spot, blonde pretty in a girl next door way, wearing a pink uniform and taking orders with a practiced smile. Tank waited until she came to the counter, then caught her eye. Katie Marsh. The smile faltered. Do I know you? No, but I'm a friend of Ryan Castellanos. We need to talk. Privately. Fear flashed across her face so quick Tank almost missed it. I can't. I'm working. It's important, Tank said, lowering his voice. It's about Brandon Kowalski. She went pale. For a second, Tank thought she might bolt. Then she glanced at the clock, called out to another waitress. Jen, cover my tables. I need a break. They went out the back door into an alley that smelled like grease and garbage. Katie wrapped her arms around herself, though it wasn't cold. How bad did he hurt Ryan? She asked immediately. So she knew. Tank's jaw tightened. Broken arm, cracked ribs. He'll live, but it was close. Katie's eyes filled with tears. I told him not to talk to me. I told him Brandon was watching, that he'd get hurt if... She choked on the words. This is my fault. This is Brandon's fault, Tank corrected. Listen to me, Katie. Are you safe? Has Brandon threatened you? She laughed a bitter sound. Brandon thinks I'm his girlfriend. I'm not. I never was. But he decided, and in this town, what Brandon decides becomes reality. If I don't play along, if I try to leave, he says he'll... She stopped, shook her head. It doesn't matter. It matters, Tank said firmly. Tell me. He says he'll hurt my dad. Dad's got a bad heart, and Brandon knows it. Says all it would take is one scare, one moment of stress, and... She wiped at her eyes angrily. I'm trapped. We're all trapped. That's how it works here. Frank owns this town, and people like Brandon do whatever they want because nobody can stop them. We can, Tank said. Katie looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Who are you? Someone who doesn't like bullies. Someone who's gonna make sure Brandon doesn't hurt anyone else. You don't understand, Katie said desperately. You can't fight them. They're everywhere. The police, the mayor, the businesses. Frank controls all of it. If you go after Brandon, you'll disappear. That's what happens to people who cause trouble. They just disappear. Let me worry about that, Tank said. Right now, I need you to do something for me. I need you to stay safe. Don't be alone with Brandon. Don't go anywhere isolated. Stay in public places around people. Can you do that? For how long? A day? Maybe 2. Just until we handle this. Katie studied him with old eyes and a young face. You're really gonna try, aren't you? You're really gonna go after them. Yeah, Tank said simply. We are. She reached out, grabbed his arm. Then be careful. Brandon's dangerous, but Frank's worse. He doesn't just hurt people. He destroys them. Everything they love, everyone they care about. He makes examples. Thanks for the warning, Tank said. Now get back to work. Act normal. Don't tell Brandon we talked. I won't, Katie promised. She turned to go, then paused. Ryan, tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I wish things were different. Tell him yourself, Tank said, after this is over. Back on the street, the sun had nearly set the sky deep purple at the edges. Ridge and Cutter were waiting by the bikes, and Tank could see the question in their eyes. She's scared, Tank said, but she'll be okay. Now let's go have that conversation with Brandon Kowalski. The Dead Zone trailer park lived up to its nickname, rusted trailers on cracked foundations, weeds growing through broken pavement, cars up on blocks in every other yard. It was the kind of place where people came to disappear, to hide from the world or from themselves. Trailer 43 was in the back, separated from the others by a stretch of bare dirt. Lights were on inside, and Tank could see shadows moving, multiple people, 3 or 4 at least. Could be all of them, Ridge murmured. Brandon and his whole crew. Good, Tank said. Saves us time. They approached on foot, leaving the bikes hidden at the entrance to the park. Tank's heart was steady calm. This was familiar territory, the moments before violence, before everything went sideways. He'd been here dozens of times, knew the feeling in his bones. The trailer door was unlocked. Tank didn't bother knocking. They burst in fast, Tank first, Cutter right behind Ridge, covering the rear. The scene inside made Tank's blood boil. 4 young men, all matching Ryan's descriptions. Brandon Kowalski was easy to identify, early 20s, dark hair, a cruel smile that died the moment he saw Tank. The other 3 scrambled up from a stained couch, hands going to waistbands where weapons might be hiding. Who the hell? Brandon started. Sit down, Tank said, his voice flat and hard. All of you. Hands where I can see them. Do you know who I am? Brandon asked, but he was already sitting, already showing his hands. Something in Tank's eyes must have convinced him that this wasn't a conversation he wanted to escalate. Yeah, Tank said. You're the piece of garbage who put an 18-year-old kid in the hospital. You're the coward who threatened a 7-year-old girl. And you're about to learn what happens when you cross the wrong people. Brandon's face paled slightly, but he recovered fast. That kid had it coming. He needed to learn. Learn what? Cutter interrupted, his voice ice cold. Learn to be scared. Learn that people like you can hurt him and get away with it. You don't understand how things work here, one of the others said. Marcus Tank guessed, the one who'd held Ryan while Brandon beat him. Frank Delacroix runs this town. You think you can just walk in here and... I think I can do whatever I want, Tank said, taking a step forward. I think you four are going to learn a lesson in respect. And I think Frank Delacroix is going to hear about what happens when you hurt innocent people in my presence. Brandon stood up slowly, his confidence returning. Frank's going to kill you for this. You know that, right? You're dead men walking. Maybe, Tank said, but you're going to be dead first if you ever go near Ryan Castellano or his family again. You're going to leave Katie Marsh alone. You're going to stop dealing at that high school, stop terrorizing kids, stop thinking you own this town. Because you don't. Not anymore. Or what? Brandon asked, sneering now. You going to beat us up? That's your big plan. We'll call the cops, have you arrested. Sheriff Hartley will have you in cuffs before. Tank moved fast, grabbed Brandon by the throat, slammed him against the trailer wall, hard enough to dent the aluminum. The other three started forward, but Cutter and Ridge had weapons out now, not guns, but knives, clubs enough to make the point. Or, Tank said quietly, his face inches from Brandon's. I'll make sure everyone in this town knows what you really are. A coward who beats up kids. A punk who hides behind Frank's reputation. I'll make sure Katie Marsh tells everyone how you threatened her. I'll make sure Ryan's mom knows you threatened her daughter. And then I'll let the people of this town decide what to do with you. You think Frank's going to protect you when you become a liability, when every parent in Dust Haven wants you gone? He released Brandon, who slumped against the wall, gasping. You've got 24 hours, Tank said. 24 hours to get out of Dust Haven. You and your crew. I don't care where you go, but you leave. And if I ever hear about you hurting someone again, if I ever hear Ryan's name or Katie's name, or any name connected to this town come out of your mouth, I will find you. And next time we won't just talk. We clear. Brandon nodded, his bravado completely gone, now replaced by genuine fear. Good, Tank said. He looked at the others. That goes for all of you. 24 hours. They left the trailer, Tank's hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline dump. Behind them, he could hear frantic voices, arguments, the sound of panic setting in. You think they'll actually leave? Ridge asked as they headed back to the bikes. They'll leave, Cutter said with certainty. They're bullies, not soldiers. Push back hard enough, and they fold. Tank wasn't so sure. Brandon had folded, yeah, but there'd been something in his eyes at the end, not just fear, but calculation. Like he was already planning his next move. They were halfway to the bikes when Tank's phone rang. Unknown number, he answered anyway. Tank, Dr. Reeves' voice tight with stress. You need to get back here, now. What's wrong? Ryan's gone. Someone came to the clinic, said they were his uncle, that you'd sent them to pick him up. I didn't believe them at first, but they showed me a text from your number, said it was urgent. By the time I realized something was wrong, they were gone. Tank's blood ran cold. How long ago? 5 minutes, maybe less. Tank, what's going on? But Tank had already hung up, was already running for his bike, his brother's right behind him. Ryan's been taken, he called over his shoulder. Someone grabbed him from the clinic. Frank, Cutter said grimly. Has to be. Tank agreed, his mind racing. They'd pushed Brandon, and Brandon had called Frank, and now Frank was pushing back. The message was clear. You came after my people, now I have yours. Except Ryan wasn't theirs. Ryan was just a scared kid they tried to help, and now he was in the hands of a monster because of them. Tank's phone buzzed again. A text from the same unknown number, a photo attached. He opened it with dread coiling in his gut. The photo showed Ryan conscious but terrified in the back of a van. And holding him, smiling at the camera, was a man Tank didn't recognize. Mid-40s, expensive suit, cold eyes. Below the photo, a message, you wanted to meet me. Let's talk. Bring your brothers. Come alone. The old Murphy warehouse on Route 9. You have 1 hour. And then, because Frank Delacroix apparently had a sense of drama, don't worry, the kid's alive. For now. Tank showed the photo to Cutter and Ridge. Their faces went hard. It's a trap, Ridge said immediately. Of course it's a trap, Tank agreed. But we're going anyway. Could be a dozen of his people there, Cutter pointed out. Could be worse than that. We go in there, we might not come out. Tank looked at the photo again at Ryan's terrified face. Then we don't come out, but we get that kid free first. They stood there for a moment, the three of them, in the gathering dark of a Nevada evening. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Music drifted from one of the trailers. Normal life continuing obliviously while they stood on the edge of something that could get them all killed. All right, Cutter said finally. Let's go get our kid back. Our kid. The words settled over Tank like a weight and a promise. Ryan wasn't theirs by blood, but he was theirs by choice, by the decision they'd made when they'd found him bleeding against that gas station wall. And they didn't leave their people behind. Ever. They mounted up, engines roaring in the quiet night. As they pulled out of the dead zone, Tank caught sight of Brandon Kowalski watching from his trailer, window phone pressed to his ear, talking fast. Yeah, Tank thought grimly. You called Frank. You set this in motion. And if Ryan dies, if that kid doesn't make it out of this alive, I'm coming back for you. Frank first, then you. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark against the star-filled sky. 1 hour, Frank had said. Tank checked his watch. They had 40 minutes left. Time to see if the Hells Angels from Silver Butte were as tough as their reputation suggested. Time to see if they could save one scared kid from a monster who owned an entire town. Time to find out if doing the right thing was worth dying for. The warehouse sat 30 yards ahead, and Tank killed his engine 200 feet back, letting momentum carry the bike to silence. Cutter and Ridge followed suit. In the sudden quiet, Tank could hear his own heartbeat steady and hard. Could be 20 guys in there, Ridge whispered. Could be an army. Could be. Tank agreed, dismounting. Won't need know until we walk in. Cutter checked his knife, slid it back into its sheath. We should have a plan. Plan's simple, Tank said. Get Ryan out alive. Everything else is negotiable. That's not a plan, that's a suicide mission. Then don't come, Tank said, not unkindly. I mean it. This isn't club business. This is me being stupid. You two can walk away right now, no judgment. Ridge laughed low and bitter. Shut up, Tank. We're going in. They approached the warehouse on foot, spreading out instinctively into formation. The building was massive, probably used for storage back when Dust Haven had an actual economy. Now it was just another corpse in a dying town, windows, broken walls, tagged with graffiti. The main door was ajar. Inviting. Obvious. Tank pushed it open with his boot, and it swung inward with a rusty groan that echoed through the space. Inside the warehouse was mostly empty, concrete floor, steel beams, shadows upon shadows. And in the center, under a single hanging work light, stood Frank Delacroix. He was exactly like his photo-expensive suit. Cold eyes, a smile that never reached them. Beside him stood two men, both armed, both watching the Angels with professional detachment. And sitting on the floor, hands zip-tied behind his back, was Ryan. The kid's face was bruised worse than before, fresh blood on his lip. But his eyes, those terrified eyes, found Tank immediately, and something like hope flickered in them. Gentlemen, Frank said, his voice smooth as silk. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. Let the kid go, Tank said, walking forward slowly. This is between us. Frank laughed. Between us. No, my friend. This became between us the moment you walked into my town and threatened one of my people. You see, I have a reputation to maintain. Can't have bikers from Silver Butte rolling in, scaring my employees, thinking they can operate in my territory. Your employee put a kid in the hospital, Cutter said flatly. Threatened a 7-year-old girl. That's not business, that's terrorism. Semantics, Frank said, waving a hand dismissively. Brandon gets a little enthusiastic sometimes, but he's effective. Keeps the high school in line, keeps the product moving. What happens to one mouthy teenager isn't my concern. It's mine, Tank said. Frank's smile widened. Yes, I can see that, which is why young Ryan here is still breathing. I could have killed him. Should have, really. Would have been easier. But I wanted to meet you, Tank. Wanted to understand what kind of man risks his life for a stranger. The kind who doesn't like bullies. Ah, but I'm not a bully, Frank said, feigning hurt. I'm a businessman. I provide services this town needs. Protection, pharmaceuticals, entertainment. I keep the economy moving. The mayor knows it. The sheriff knows it. Everyone knows it. You're the interloper here, not me. Tank took another step forward. Frank's guards tensed hands, moving toward their weapons. Here's what's going to happen. Frank continued, his voice hardening. You're going to leave Dust Haven. Tonight, you and your brothers are going to ride out of here and never come back. You're going to forget about Ryan, forget about Brandon, forget this town exists. And if we don't, Ridge asked. Frank gestured to Ryan. Then I send this boy home to his mother in pieces. Then I visit that mother, then I visit the little sister. Then I start working through everyone Ryan knows, teachers, friends, that pretty girl at the diner. I don't stop until this town understands that defying me has consequences. The casual way he said it, like he was discussing the weather, made Tank's skin crawl. You're insane, Tank said. I'm practical, Frank corrected. You put me in a difficult position. I can't let your interference go unpunished. But I also don't want a war with Silver Butte, bad for business. So I'm offering you a deal. Walk away and everyone lives. Stay and everyone dies. Simple. Tank looked at Ryan. The kid was crying silently now, tears cutting through the blood on his face. His shoulders shook with suppressed sobs. Kid, Tank called out. You okay? Ryan nodded, didn't trust his voice. Hang tight, Tank said. We're getting you out of here. No, Frank said pleasantly. You're really not. You see, I've already made my decision. Whether you agree to my terms or not, Ryan dies tonight. Can't have him talking, can't have him emboldening others. He's a liability now. The words hung in the air for 3 seconds before Ryan screamed. It wasn't a scream of pain, but of pure terror, the sound of someone who just heard their own death sentence. He tried to scramble backward, still zip-tied fell hard on his injured arm, and screamed again, this time in agony. Tank moved without thinking. He lunged forward, and Frank's guards brought up their guns, and everything slowed down in that way it does before violence. The world narrowing to target points and threat assessments in the distance between him and Ryan. Stop, Frank said, and his voice cracked like a whip. Tank froze. The guns were pointed at his chest, maybe 6 feet away. At this range, they wouldn't miss. I admire the heroics, Frank said, but they're pointless. Ryan is already dead. Question is whether you want to join him. You kill that kid, Cutter said, his voice deadly calm, and you'll have every chapter of the Hells Angels from here to California looking for you. You think you can hide from that? I think I can kill 3 bikers and bury them where nobody will ever find them, Frank said. I think I can make Ryan's death look like an accident, and I think your chapter president will accept my explanation that you 3 went rogue, got yourselves killed doing something stupid and unauthorized. He pulled out a phone, held it up. Already talked to Razor, nice guy. Very understanding once I explained the situation. Sends his condolences. Tank felt ice in his veins. You're lying. Am I? Frank tapped his phone and a voice recording played. Razor's voice unmistakable. If they went after one of your people without authorization, that's on them. Silver Butte doesn't want trouble with you, Frank. Do what you gotta do. The recording ended. Frank smiled. Razor sold us out, Ridge whispered disbelief in his voice. Razor's a businessman just like me, Frank said. He understands that 3 members aren't worth starting a war over, especially 3 members who acted without orders, without thinking, because they had some misguided hero fantasy. Tank's mind raced. If Razor had actually sold them out, they were finished. No backup, no support, just 3 men against Frank's entire organization. So here we are, Frank said. End of the line. Any last words? Tank looked at Ryan again. The kid had stopped screaming, was just lying there now, broken and hopeless. 18 years old, his whole life ahead of him. And it was going to end in this warehouse because Tank had tried to help. Yeah, Tank said, I got last words. You're making a mistake. How so? You think killing us makes you look strong, but everyone in this town is going to know you murdered a kid. They're going to know you killed 3 men who were just trying to protect him, and they're going to be scared, sure, but they're also going to hate you, and one day that hate's going to come back to bite you. Frank considered this. Perhaps, but I'll still be alive to feel it. You won't. He nodded to his guards. They raised their weapons, and then the warehouse exploded with sound. Not gunfire engines, motorcycle engines, dozens of them, roaring to life all around the building. Light flooded through the broken windows, headlights, from what sounded like a small army. Frank's confident smile faltered. What? The side door burst open and bikers poured in. 20 of them, 30 Tank lost count. They surrounded Frank and his guards in seconds, a wall of leather and muscle and barely controlled violence. And leading them walking through the crowd, like Moses parting the Red Sea, was Razor. He was 53, grizzled with a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw, and eyes that had seen everything and forgiven nothing. He looked at Frank with something close to pity. "Frank Delacroix," Razor said, his voice carrying through the warehouse, "so you really shouldn't have used my voice without permission." "That recording, yeah, that was from 3 months ago. Different conversation." "Cute trick. Also stupid." Frank's face went pale. "Razor, I can explain." "Explain what? That you kidnapped a kid, that you threatened my brothers, that you thought you could manipulate me into letting you murder them." Razor shook his head. "I don't like being played, Frank. Makes me irritable." Tank felt relief flood through him, so intense it was almost painful. "How did you—" "GPS on your bike," Razor said without looking at him. "When you texted me about being delayed, I got curious. When I saw you were in Dust Haven, I got concerned. When I saw you were stationary at this warehouse, I got moving. Called in every chapter within 50 miles. He finally looked at Tank. "You're reckless and stupid, but you're my reckless and stupid. Nobody touches Silver Butte without consequences." Frank's guards had lowered their weapons, smart enough to know they were outnumbered 10-1. Frank himself looked like he was calculating odds for trying to find a way out. "This is a misunderstanding," Frank tried. "These men interfered with my business, threatened my people." "Your people beat a kid half to death," Razor interrupted. "Your people threatened a 7-year-old girl. Your people are scum, and you're the king of scum. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to release Ryan, you're going to call off Brandon Kowalski and his crew, and you're going to leave this town." "Leave?" Frank laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I own this town, the sheriff, the mayor, half the businesses." "Not anymore," Razor said. "See, while you were busy playing gangster, I made some calls. Turns out the state police have been very interested in your operations for a while now. They're raiding your properties right now, your warehouses, your labs, your safe houses, all of it. And they're arresting everyone they find, including Sheriff Hartley, who's apparently been very talkative since they showed him the RICO charges." Frank's face went from pale to gray. "You're lying." Razor held up his phone, showing a news alert. "Major drug bust in Dust Haven, multiple arrests, investigation ongoing." He smiled without warmth. "You're done, Frank. Question is whether you go quietly or whether we make this messy." For a long moment, Frank just stood there, his empire crumbling around him. Then something shifted in his eyes, desperation maybe, or rage, or both. He moved fast, pulling a gun from inside his jacket, grabbing Ryan and hauling the kid to his feet. Ryan screamed as the movement jarred his broken arm, and Frank pressed the gun to his head. "Nobody moves," Frank shouted. "I walk out of here with the kid or I blow his brains out right now." The warehouse went silent. 30 bikers, all armed, all ready, all frozen. Frank Razor said carefully, "Don't make this worse." "Worse? How could it be worse?" Frank's voice cracked. "You destroyed everything. My business, my reputation, my life. You think I'm just going to surrender? Let you parade me in front of cameras like some common criminal?" "You are a common criminal," Tank said, taking a careful step forward. "And you're not walking out of here with that kid." Frank pressed the gun harder against Ryan's temple. Ryan whimpered, tears streaming down his face. "Stay back," Frank warned. "I'll do it. I swear to God I'll do it." "No, you won't," Tank said, still moving forward slowly. "Because killing him doesn't save you. It just adds murder one to your charges. You're smart enough to know that." "I don't care anymore," Frank said, and there was something unhinged in his voice now. "I don't care about charges or jail or any of it. They took everything from me. Everything." "They didn't take everything," Tank said softly. "You still have a choice. You can let Ryan go, surrender peacefully, and maybe get through this alive. Or you can kill him, and these 30 men will tear you apart before you can blink. Your call." He was close now, maybe 10 feet away, close enough to see the sweat on Frank's forehead, the tremor in his hand. "Don't," Frank said, but his voice was weak. "Don't come closer." "Let him go," Tank said. "Whatever you are, Whatever you've done, you're not a child killer. I can see it in your eyes. Let him go. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then Frank's hand wavered, the gun dropping slightly. Tank moved. He covered the distance in 2 steps. Grabbed Frank's wrist, twisted hard. The gun went off, the sound deafening in the enclosed space, and Tank felt the bullet pass so close to his head, he felt the heat. Then the gun had Frank's arm bent at an impossible angle, had him on the ground with a knee in his back. Ryan collapsed sobbing, and Cutter was there immediately cutting the zip ties, checking him over. "You're okay," Cutter said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "You're okay, kid. It's over." Frank didn't struggle, just lay there defeated as Razor's men secured him. "State police are 5 minutes out," Razor said, checking his phone. "They'll take him from here." Tank stood, his hands shaking with adrenaline. He looked at Ryan, who was clinging to Cutter like a drowning man to a life raft. "Is he hurt?" Tank asked. "Bruised, scared, but alive," Cutter reported. "Arms still stable. He'll be okay." Tank nodded, felt something tight in his chest finally loosen. They'd done it. Against all odds, against every rational reason they should have failed, they'd saved him. "You're an idiot," Razor said, coming to stand beside Tank. "You know that, right?" "Yeah," Tank agreed. "I know. Could have gotten yourself killed. Could have started a war. Could have destroyed the club's reputation in this whole region." "I know," Tank said again. Razor was quiet for a moment. Then, "But you also saved that kid's life, and you exposed a corrupt operation that's been poisoning this town for years. So I guess you're an idiot who did good." "High praise," Tank said dryly. "Don't expect it often." The police arrived exactly when Razor said they would. State troopers in unmarked cars, professional and efficient. They took Frank into custody, took statements, thanked Razor for his cooperation. Turned out Razor hadn't just called in backup. He'd called a state investigator he knew filled them in on Frank's operation, given them everything they needed for a warrant. The raid had been in motion before Frank had even grabbed Ryan. "You planned this," Tank said as they watched Frank being loaded into a police car. "You knew what we were walking into." "I suspected," Razor corrected. "When you said you were delayed, I checked the GPS, saw you were in Frank Delacroix's territory. Wasn't hard to put together what was happening. Kid in trouble, bikers trying to help local crime lord getting involved. Tale as old as time. You could have called, warned us. Would you have listened?" Tank thought about it. "No." "Exactly, so I did the next best thing. Made sure you had backup when you needed it." Razor clapped him on the shoulder. "You did good, Tank. Reckless and stupid, but good." Ryan was sitting on the back of an ambulance now, EMTs checking him over while he gave his statement to a detective. He kept looking over at Tank like he was afraid if he looked away, Tank would disappear. "He's gonna need therapy," Cutter observed, coming to stand with him. "Probably years of it. What he went through, kidnapping, death threats, watching Frank nearly blow his own brains out, that's not something you just get over." "We'll make sure he gets help," Razor said. "Club's got resources. We'll set him up with someone good." "Club doesn't owe him anything," Tank said. "No," Razor agreed, "but we're doing it anyway. Consider it my way of apologizing for doubting you." Tank looked at him sharply. "You didn't doubt me, didn't I? When you texted about being delayed, my first thought was you were screwing around, wasting time. Took me almost 20 minutes to check the GPS to realize something was wrong. 20 minutes you might not have had if things had gone differently." Razor's jaw tightened. "I should have trusted my gut. Should have known you wouldn't delay for nothing." "You came when it mattered," Tank said. "That's what counts." The detective finished with Ryan, and the kid made his way over to them, moving carefully, favoring his injured side. "Hey," Tank said softly. "How you holding up?" Ryan's voice broke. He tried again. "I'm alive. Because of you. Because of all of you." "You're alive because you're tough," Tank corrected. "You survived Brandon's beating, survived Frank's threats, survived all of it. That's on you, not us." Ryan shook his head violently. "You saved me. You came for me when you didn't have to, when it would have been easier to just leave to let Frank—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Instead, he did something Tank didn't expect. He stepped forward and hugged Tank, wrapping his good arm around him, pressing his face against Tank's chest. Tank froze for a second, awkward with the sudden contact. Then slowly he put his arms around the kid, held him, while he cried. "Thank you," Ryan whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." You're welcome, kid, Tank said, his voice rough. You're welcome. When Ryan finally pulled back, his eyes were red but calmer. What happens now? They said Frank's gang is being arrested, that Brandon and his crew are going to be charged as accessories. But what about me? What about my family? What about them? Tank asked. Will we be safe? Frank has connections, people who might want revenge. What if Ryan Razor interrupted, his voice, firm but not unkind. Frank's organization is done. His people are scattered or arrested. Nobody's coming for you, and even if they tried, they'd have to go through us first. You understand, you and your family are under Silver Butte's protection now. Anyone touches you, they answer to us. Ryan stared at him. Why? Why would you do that? Because that's what we do, Razor said simply. We protect people who can't protect themselves. It's not always pretty, not always legal, but it's who we are. A car pulled up, Mrs. Castellano with Lily in the back seat. The little girl's eyes were wide, taking in the police cars and ambulances and bikers everywhere. Ryan, his mother, was out of the car before it fully stopped running to him, pulling him into her arms. Oh God, baby, are you okay? The police called, said you were in trouble, said... She pulled back, saw his face, his injuries, and fresh tears started. What happened? Who did this? It's over, Mom, Ryan said. It's all over. She looked at Tank, at Razor, at the assembled bikers. You saved him. He saved himself, Tank said. We just helped. Mrs. Castellano studied him for a long moment, then did something unexpected. She stepped forward and kissed his cheek. Thank you, she said simply. I don't know who you are or why you helped, but thank you. You gave me back my son. Tank didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Lily had climbed out of the car, was peering at the bikers with open curiosity rather than fear. Are you a good guy or a bad guy? She asked Tank seriously. Tank crouched down to her level. What do you think? She considered this gravely. I think you're a good guy. Bad guys don't save people. Smart kid, Tank said. Are those men going to hurt Ryan anymore? Lily asked, pointing toward the police cars where Frank and his people were being loaded up. No, Tank said firmly. They're never going to hurt anyone again. Good, Lily said with the absolute certainty of a 7-year-old. Then can I sit on your motorcycle? Lily, Mrs. Castellano gasped. That's not... It's okay, Tank said, smiling for the first time in hours. Come on, kid. Let's go check out the bikes. He led Lily over to where his bike was parked, lifted her onto the seat. She giggled, gripping the handlebars like she owned them. It's so big, she exclaimed. You got to grow into it, Tank said. Few more years, maybe you'll have one of your own. Can girls be bikers? Some of the toughest bikers I know are women, Tank said truthfully. Gender doesn't matter, it's about heart. Lily beamed at him. Behind them, Ryan and his mother were talking to the detective, giving more details, starting the long process of official statements and paperwork. Ridge and Cutter were with Razor, probably getting debriefed on everything that had happened. Thank you for saving my brother, Lily said suddenly, her young face serious again. He's the best brother ever. I don't want anything bad to happen to him. Nothing's going to happen to him, Tank promised. I'll make sure of it. You promise? I promise. She held out her pinky. Tank stared at it for a second, then hooked his own pinky with hers. Pinky promise is the most serious promise, Lily informed me. You can't break it ever. Then I definitely won't break it, Tank said. A trooper came over, said they needed Tank for a statement. He lifted Lily off the bike, set her down gently. Take care of your brother, he told her. I will, she said solemnly. And you take care too. Bad guys might try to hurt you for being good. I'll watch out for them, Tank promised. The statement took an hour. Tank told them everything, finding Ryan, taking him to the clinic, confronting Brandon, the kidnapping, Frank's threats, all of it. The detective, a sharp-eyed woman named Morrison, listened without interrupting, taking notes. You took a hell of a risk, she said when he finished. Frank Delacroix killed for less than what you did. Kid needed help, Tank said with a shrug. Most people would have called the police. Most people didn't know the police were on Frank's payroll. Morrison nodded. Fair point. For what it's worth, we've been trying to build a case against Frank for 3 years. Never had enough evidence, never had witnesses willing to talk. What you did tonight, getting Ryan to safety, forcing Frank's hand, that gave us the opening we needed. Half his organization rolled on him within an hour of being arrested. We've got enough to put him away for life. Good, Tank said. Brandon Kowalski and his crew are looking at assault battery criminal threats working for a criminal enterprise. They'll do time too, probably 5 to 10 years each. Not enough, Tank said flatly. For what they did to Ryan, for what they threatened to do to Lily. Maybe not, Morrison agreed. But it's what we've got. Justice isn't always perfect, but it's something. Tank thought about Ryan's face when Frank had pressed the gun to his head. Thought about Lily asking if the bad guys would hurt her brother anymore. Yeah, he said finally. It's something. When he emerged from the police trailer, the sun was starting to rise. Pink and gold light spilled across the desert, turning everything soft and new. Most of Razor's backup had dispersed, heading home to their own chapters, their own lives. But Cutter and Ridge remained sitting on their bikes waiting. Done, Cutter asked. Done, Tank confirmed. Ryan and his family left about 20 minutes ago, Ridge said. Kid didn't want to go. Kept asking when he'd see you again. Tank felt something twist in his chest. What did you tell him? Told him we'd be in touch, that we'd check on him. Ridge paused. That true, we gonna check on him? Tank looked at his brothers, at these men who'd followed him into hell without hesitation, who'd risked everything for a stranger because it was the right thing to do. Yeah, he said, we're gonna check on him. Make sure he's healing, make sure he's safe, make sure he knows he's not alone. Good, Cutter said. He stood stretched. Now can we please get out of this town? I need a shower, a meal, and about 12 hours of sleep. Seconded, Ridge said. They mounted up, engines rumbling to life. Razor came over, clasped Tank's hand. You did good work here, he said, proud of you. Thanks, Prez. Don't let it go to your head. You're still reckless and stupid. Tank grinned. Wouldn't dream of it. As they rode out of Dust Haven, Tank looked back once. The town was waking up, people emerging from houses, reading the news about Frank's arrest, about the corruption being exposed, about the gang being dismantled. A new day, literally and figuratively. And somewhere in that town, Ryan Castellano was safe. Hurt, traumatized, but alive and safe with his mother and sister, with a future that hadn't been ripped away from him. Tank thought about Lily's pinky promise, about her absolute faith that he would keep Ryan safe. He would. No matter what came next, no matter what threats emerged, he would keep that promise, because that's what good guys did. They made it 15 miles before Tank's phone rang. Unknown number again, and his stomach dropped. Tank, a woman's voice said, shaking badly. This is Sarah, Dr. Reeves. He pulled over immediately, the others following suit. What's wrong? It's Katie Marsh. She just showed up at my clinic. Someone beat her. Bad. She's saying, Dr. Reeves' voice cracked. She's saying it was Nick Rossi, one of Brandon's crew. He found out she talked to you. Tank felt ice flood his veins. We're coming. Don't let her leave. He killed the call, looked at Cutter and Ridge. Their faces told him they had heard enough. I thought Frank's people were arrested, Ridge said. Most of them, Tank said grimly. Guess we missed one. They made it back to Dust Haven in 12 minutes flat, bikes screaming down the empty highway. The clinic door was locked, but Dr. Reeves opened it immediately, her face pale. Katie was in the examination room, and Tank had to fight not to react. Her face was worse than Ryan's had been, both eyes swollen nearly shut, nose obviously broken, blood matting her blonde hair. But it was the look in her eyes that got him. Dead, hollow, like something inside her had shattered beyond repair. Hey, Tank said softly, pulling up a chair. Katie, it's Tank. Remember me? She nodded, fractionally winced at the movement. Can you tell me what happened? Her voice came out thick, slurred from the swelling. Nick, he came to the diner about an hour ago. Said he knew I'd talk to you. Said Brandon told him to teach me a lesson before they left town. She swallowed. Said I needed to understand what happens to snitches. Where is he now? Cutter asked. Don't know. He beat me in the parking lot, then drove off. Said if I told anyone he'd come back, he'd finish it. Fresh tears cut through the blood. But I can't keep living like this. Scared all the time. So I came here. Dr. Reeves was cleaning the wounds with practiced efficiency, but Tank could see her hands trembling. Nick Rossi, Tank said. What's he drive? Black pickup. Ford F-150. Has a dent in the passenger door. Ridge was already on his phone texting someone. Got it. I'll put the word out, see if anyone spotted him. Katie, Tank said carefully. Do you know where Nick lives? She nodded. He's got an apartment above the hardware store downtown. Building's abandoned except for him. Uses it as a crash pad. Stay here, Tank told her. Dr. Reeves is going to fix you up, and then we're calling the police. Real police state troopers. They'll take your statement, and Nick will go to jail with the rest of them. He'll kill me, Katie whispered. When he gets out, whenever that is, he'll kill me for talking. No, Tank said firmly. He won't, because I'm not going to let him walk away from this. Dr. Reeves caught his arm as he turned to leave. Tank, don't do something stupid. Too late for that, Tank said. Already did something stupid when I got involved. Might as well see it through. The hardware store was easy to find, boarded up windows, graffiti on the walls, exactly the kind of place someone like Nick would hide. Tank could see a light on in the second floor window. He's here, Ridge murmured. Good, Tank said. Boss. They went in through the back door, which wasn't even locked. The stairs creaked under their weight, and Tank didn't bother being quiet. Let Nick hear them coming. Let him know what was about to happen. The apartment door was at the end of a hallway that smelled like mold and old beer. Tank kicked it open without hesitation. Nick was inside packing a duffel bag, moving fast. He spun when the door crashed open, and his hand went to his waistband. Don't, Cutter said, his gun already out, already aimed. Nick froze, his face going white. You can't be here. Frank said you left. He said you were gone. Frank lied, Tank said, walking in slowly. Or maybe he just didn't know we'd come back. Either way, here we are. Look, I was just following orders, Nick said, his voice climbing toward panic. Brandon said teach the girl a lesson. I didn't want to, but he said, you put her in the hospital, Tank interrupted. You beat an 18-year-old girl in a parking lot because she talked to us, because she dared to ask for help. It wasn't like that. What was it like? Tank asked, his voice deadly calm. Explain it to me. Make me understand how you look at a scared girl and decide, yeah, I'm going to hurt her. I'm going to make her bleed. I'm going to make her wish she'd stayed silent. Nick's eyes darted around looking for escape routes. There weren't any. Cutter blocked the door. Ridge covered the window. I'm sorry, Nick said desperately. I'm sorry, okay? I'll turn myself in. I'll confess to everything. Just don't hurt me. Hurt you, Tank repeated. Why would I hurt you? I'm not a monster. Not like you. Relief flooded Nick's face for about 2 seconds. Then Tank grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall so hard the drywall cracked. But I'm not letting you walk either, Tank said softly. You're going to tell me everything. Every person Brandon's crew hurt. Every crime Frank's organization committed. Every dirty cop, every corrupt official, every piece of this operation. And then you're going to say it all again to the state police. You understand? Nick nodded frantically, couldn't speak with Tank's hand around his throat. Tank released him and Nick collapsed to the floor, gasping. Start talking, Tank said. And Nick did. For the next 20 minutes, he spilled everything, names, dates, locations. He told them about the protection rackets, the drug distribution network, the bribes and blackmail that kept Frank's empire running. He told them about other kids Brandon's crew had hurt, other families they'd terrorized. He told them about Sheriff Hartley's involvement, about the mayor's complicity, about a dozen officials who'd looked the other way. Ridge recorded all of it on his phone, making sure every word was captured. That everything, Tank asked when Nick finally ran out of words. Yes, that's everything I know. Good, Tank said. He pulled out his phone, called Detective Morrison. Got another one for you. Nick Rossi, Brandon's crew. He just assaulted Katie Marsh, and he's ready to confess to about 30 other crimes. How fast can you get here? Morrison said 15 minutes. Tank told her the address, hung up. What now? Nick asked, his voice small. Now you sit there and think about what you did, Tank said. Think about Katie's face. Think about Ryan's broken arm. Think about all the people you hurt because you were too weak to stand up to Brandon. I was scared, Nick said. If I didn't do what he said he would have. Would have what? Beat you up, threatened your family. Tank crouched down, got eye level with him. You think that makes it okay? You think being scared gives you permission to hurt innocent people? Nick didn't answer, just stared at the floor. The state police arrived in 12 minutes, not 15. They took Nick into custody, listened to the recording Ridge had made, told Tank they'd need statements from him and Katie both. She's at Dr. Reeves' clinic, Tank said. And she's terrified. You go easy on her. We will, Morrison promised. She looked tired, like she'd been up all night processing Frank's people. This case keeps getting bigger. Every person we arrest gives us 3 more names. It's like pulling on a thread and watching the whole sweater unravel. How long until it's over? Tank asked. Over could be months, years if it goes to trial. She paused. But the immediate threat, that's done. Frank's organization is finished. His people are either arrested or running. Nobody's going to come after your kids now. Your kids. Tank felt the weight of those words settle on him. They're not mine, he said. Morrison gave him a knowing look. You sure about that? Because from where I'm standing, you've adopted half the teenagers in Dust Haven. After she left, the 3 of them stood in the street, exhaustion finally catching up with them. The sun was fully up now, the town awake and buzzing with news of the arrests. We should go, Ridge said. Really go this time. Get some sleep. But Tank's phone rang again. This time it was a number he recognized, Mrs. Castellano. Tank, I'm sorry to bother you, but Ryan's asking for you. He won't settle down, won't stop worrying that Frank's people are going to come back. I told him you said we're safe, but he needs to hear it from you. Would you mind stopping by? Tank looked at Cutter and Ridge. They both nodded. We'll be there in 10 minutes, Tank said. The Castellano house looked different in daylight, smaller, more vulnerable. Mrs. Castellano met them at the door, looking like she hadn't slept. Thank you for coming. He's in his room, won't come out. Tank went upstairs, knocked softly on Ryan's door. Go away, came Ryan's muffled voice. It's Tank. Silence. Then the door cracked open, and Ryan's face appeared, still bruised, but less swollen. Hey, kid, Tank said. Can I come in? Ryan opened the door wider, let him in. The room was typical: teenage posters on the walls, clothes on the floor, homework scattered across a desk. But Ryan wasn't looking at any of it. He was looking at Tank like he was a lifeline. Nick Rossi beat up Katie, Ryan said immediately. Mom showed me the news. They're saying he did it because she talked to you guys. That's my fault. If I hadn't... Stop, Tank interrupted. This isn't your fault. None of it is. Nick made his choice just like Brandon made his, just like Frank made his. You didn't make them hurt people. They did that on their own. But Katie is alive, hurt but alive, and Nick's in custody. They got him about an hour ago. He's not hurting anyone else. Ryan sank onto his bed, his good hand shaking. I thought it was over. When you saved me when Frank got arrested, I thought it was over, but it's not, is it? There's always going to be someone else, someone who wants revenge, or who thinks I'm a snitch, or who just, his voice broke. I'm never going to be safe, am I? Tank sat down beside him. You want the truth? Ryan nodded. The truth is absolute safety doesn't exist. There's always going to be bad people in the world. But that doesn't mean you live in fear. It means you learn to be strong. You learn to stand up for yourself. And you remember that you've got people who have your back. Like you. Like me, Tank confirmed. Like Cutter and Ridge. Like your mom and Lily. Like Katie and Dr. Reeves and everyone else in this town who's finally free of Frank's control. You're not alone, Ryan. That's what you got to remember. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then, I want to learn to fight, to protect myself. Can you teach me? Tank considered this. That's something you got to talk to your mom about. But yeah, if she's okay with it, I can teach you some basics. Self-defense, how to stay aware, how to get out of bad situations. And what if someone comes after Lily? What if? Then you call me, Tank said firmly. Day or night doesn't matter. You call me and I'll come. That's a promise. Another pinky promise. Tank smiled despite himself. If you want. They hooked pinkies just like Tank had done with Lily. Ryan's hand was bigger, but it still felt small and fragile. Thank you, Ryan said quietly, for everything, for saving me, for believing me, for caring when nobody else did. People cared, Tank said. They were just too scared to act. But that's changing now. You helped change it. How? You survived. You told the truth even when it was dangerous. You gave the police what they needed to take Frank down. That takes courage, kid. Real courage. Ryan did not look convinced, but he nodded anyway. Downstairs, Mrs. Castellano had made coffee, which Cutter and Ridge were drinking gratefully. Lily was at the kitchen table coloring with intense concentration. How is he? Mrs. Castellano asked. Scared? Tank said honestly. But he'll be okay. He just needs time. Time and therapy, she said. I made an appointment with a counselor for next week. For both of us, actually. After what we've been through, she stopped, composed herself. I never realized how bad it was here. How much control Frank had. Everyone knew, but everyone was too scared to say anything. And now that he's gone, it's like the whole town can finally breathe. Change doesn't happen overnight, Tank said. There's going to be a transition period. Some of Frank's people might still be out there, might try to rebuild. You got to stay vigilant. Will you? She hesitated. Will you stay in touch? Ryan trusts you. I trust you. And I think he needs someone like you in his life. A male role model who isn't, she gestured vaguely, isn't broken by this town. Tank felt something shift in his chest. He'd come to Dust Haven by accident, stopped at a gas station because he needed a break. And now this woman was asking him to be part of her son's life, to be someone Ryan could count on. Yeah, he said, I'll stay in touch. We'll check in, make sure you're all doing okay. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. Thank you so much. Lily looked up from her coloring. Are you staying for breakfast? Mom makes really good pancakes. Tank glanced at Cutter and Ridge. They both shrugged, smiling. You know what, Tank said. Pancakes sound great. They stayed for breakfast, and it was surprisingly normal, just people eating together, talking about nothing important. Lily told them about her favorite TV shows. Mrs. Castellano talked about her job at the hospital. Ryan came down, eventually still quiet but less tense, and ate 3 pancakes without saying much. It felt like family, Tank realized. Not the one he'd been born into, which had been broken and violent and ultimately fatal. But the one he'd chosen. The one he'd built. When they finally left, Lily made him promise to come back soon. Ryan shook his hand, his grip surprisingly strong for someone with a broken arm. Mrs. Castellano hugged each of them, told them they'd always be welcome. That was nice, Ridge said as they rode away. Weird, but nice. Yeah, Tank agreed. It was. They made it another 20 miles before Tank's phone rang yet again. This time it was Razor. Where are you? He asked without preamble. Leaving Dust Haven. Finally. Good, because we've got a problem. Frank's lawyer just posted his bail. He's out. Tank felt his stomach drop. How he's a flight risk. He's facing RICO charges. Lawyer argued he's not a flight risk because all his assets are frozen. Nowhere to run. Judge bought it, set bail at $500,000. Lawyer posted it immediately. When, about an hour ago, Tank Frank called me. 10 minutes ago, he wants to meet. No, Tank said immediately. It's a trap. He's out. He's desperate. He wants revenge. That's what I thought too, Razor said. But he said something interesting. He said he wants to make a deal, said he knows his organization is finished, knows he's going to prison. But he's got information about other operations, other criminals the police haven't even touched yet, and he'll trade that information for one thing. What? Razor paused. He wants you to promise to keep protecting Ryan and Katie. Says they're loose ends, says other people in his network might come after them for revenge. Says he'll give up everything if you guarantee their safety. Tank processed this. That doesn't make sense. Why would Frank care about protecting the people who helped destroy him? I asked him that. He said, Razor's voice was strange. He said he's got a daughter, 18 years old, lives with his ex-wife in California. Said he hadn't seen her in 5 years because of the life he chose. Said seeing Ryan reminded him of her, of what he'd lost. Said he doesn't want anyone else to lose their kids because of his mistakes. You believe him? I don't know, Razor admitted, but the police do. Morrison called me. Frank's already started talking. He's giving them names, locations, evidence, everything. Says he'll testify against his own people if it means keeping Ryan safe. Tank felt like the world had tilted sideways. So what do you want me to do? Meet with him. Hear what he has to say. Morrison will be there. It'll be official. But Frank wants to look you in the eye, wants your word that you'll keep those kids safe. Tank thought about Ryan's face, about Lily's pinky promise, about Katie's dead eyes. Fine, he said. Where and when? State Police Headquarters, 2 hours. Morrison's clearing a room for us. Tank hung up, explained the situation to Cutter and Ridge. This is insane, Ridge said. Frank Delacroix wants to help us protect the people who destroyed him. People are complicated, Cutter said quietly. Maybe Frank's finally realizing what he became. Maybe he wants to do one good thing before he goes to prison for life. Or maybe it's a trick, Ridge countered. Only one way to find out, Tank said. The state police headquarters was a modern building, all glass and steel, completely unlike Dust Haven's rundown sheriff's office. Morrison met them in the lobby, looking exhausted but grimly satisfied. "Frank's in interview room 3, she said. "He's been talking for 6 hours straight. We've already made 15 new arrests based on his information. He's giving us everything: trafficking routes, money laundering operations, corrupt officials in 3 counties. It's the biggest break we've had in a decade. And all he wants is for us to protect Ryan," Tank asked skeptically. "That's what he says." Morrison led them down a hallway. "I'll be honest, I don't get it either. But I've been watching him, and he seems genuine. Broken, but genuine." Frank was sitting alone at a metal table, looking nothing like the confident crime lord from the warehouse. His expensive suit was rumpled, his face drawn. He looked up when Tank entered, and something like relief crossed his features. "Tank," he said, "thank you for coming." "I'm not here to make nice," Tank said flatly. "I'm here because you have information the police need. That's it." "I know." Frank gestured to the empty chairs. "Please sit." Tank sat Cutter and Ridge flanking him. Morrison remained by the door, recording everything. "I've been thinking," Frank began, "about the moment in the warehouse when I put that gun to Ryan's head, about the look in his eyes. Terror. Complete, absolute terror. And I realized I've been putting that look in people's eyes for 20 years, building my empire on fear." "And now you want redemption?" Tank asked coldly. "Little late for that." "I don't want redemption," Frank said. "I know what I am. I'm going to prison for the rest of my life, and I deserve it. But before I go, I want to do one thing right. I want to make sure Ryan Castellano and Katie Marsh survive this. Because other people in my network, people the police haven't caught yet, they're going to want revenge. They're going to see those kids as the ones who started the domino effect that brought everything down." "Who?" Tank demanded. "Give me names." Frank smiled bitterly. "That's the thing. I'm giving you everything. But I need your promise first. I need to know that you'll protect them, that you'll check on them, keep them safe, make sure they don't disappear because they had the courage to speak up." "Why do you care?" Frank was quiet for a long moment. "I have a daughter. Had a daughter. She doesn't speak to me anymore. Haven't seen her since she was 13. Her mother took her and ran because she knew what I'd become. And I let them go because I thought my empire was more important than my family." His voice cracked slightly. "Last night when I was in holding, I called her. First time in 5 years. She wouldn't talk to me, but her mother did. Told me Emily's in college now, studying to be a teacher. Told me she's happy, safe, has a good life. Everything I couldn't give her." He looked directly at Tank. "Ryan reminded me of her. Young, scared, just trying to survive in a world run by monsters like me. And I realized I can't save my relationship with Emily. That's gone forever. But maybe I can save Ryan. Maybe I can make sure he gets the chance at life that I stole from my own kid." Tank studied him, trying to find the lie, the manipulation. But all he saw was a broken man who'd finally realized the cost of his choices. "What do you want from me specifically?" Tank asked. "Check on them. Once a month, once a week, whatever you can manage. Make sure they're okay. And if anyone comes after them, anyone from my old organization or any other organization, you handle it. You're Silver Butte. You've got resources, connections, respect. You can protect them in ways the police can't. And in exchange, I give you everything, every name, every location, every operation. I'll testify against anyone you need me to. I'll make sure my entire network goes down so completely that there's nothing left to rebuild." Morrison spoke up. "He's already made good on that promise. The information he's given us has been solid. We're dismantling an operation that's been running for 2 decades. Tank looked at Cutter, then Ridge. They both gave small nods. "Okay," Tank said finally. "You've got my word. We'll protect them." Frank's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you. But understand something," Tank continued, his voice hard. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because those kids deserve to be safe. You don't get credit for this. You don't get to feel better about yourself. You're still a monster who hurt innocent people for 20 years. "I know," Frank said quietly. "Believe me, I know." Over the next 2 hours, Frank laid it all out. Names, addresses, photographs, bank accounts. He drew maps of distribution networks, explained how the bribes worked, identified corrupt officials in positions of power. Morrison's team took notes, frantically cross-referencing everything, making plans for raids and arrests. "There's one more thing," Frank said as they were wrapping up. "Marcus Webb." Tank remembered the name, one of Brandon's crew, the one who'd held Ryan while Brandon beat him. "What about him?" "He didn't get arrested with the others. He ran when he heard about my takedown, but he's not smart enough to disappear properly. He's probably holed up at his girlfriend's apartment in Henderson, and he's angry, desperate, and stupid enough to try something." "Try what?" Frank met his eyes. "Revenge. Against Ryan." Marcus blames Ryan for everything: the arrests, the organization falling apart, his future being destroyed. If he's going to make a move, it'll be soon. "Address," Tank demanded. Frank recited it from memory. Morrison immediately called it in, dispatching units to Henderson. "One more thing," Frank said. "Tell Ryan I'm sorry. Tell him," he stopped, swallowed hard. "Tell him I hope he gets the life he deserves, the one I couldn't give my own daughter." Tank didn't respond, just stood and walked out. He didn't owe Frank comfort or forgiveness. Outside, the afternoon sun was harsh and bright. Tank called Mrs. Castellano immediately. "Tank," she answered. "Is everything okay?" "Where's Ryan?" "He's here doing homework." "Why?" "I need you to lock the doors, all of them. Don't open them for anyone except police or us. There's a possibility." He chose his words carefully, not wanting to panic her. There might be one more person from Frank's crew still out there. "Just being cautious." Her voice went tight. Okay, we're locking up now. We're coming to you. Should be there in an hour." They rode hard, pushing the bikes faster than was probably safe. Tank's mind raced with scenarios, each worse than the last. Marcus showing up at Ryan's house, breaking in, finishing what Brandon had started. His phone rang. Morrison. "We got him," she said immediately. "Marcus Webb, arrested at his girlfriend's apartment, exactly where Frank said he'd be. Found a gun on him along with photos of Ryan's house. He was planning something." Tank felt relief wash over him. "He say what?" "Not yet, but we'll get it out of him. Tank, you might have just saved that kid's life." Again. They still went to the Castellano house, checked every window and door, made sure everything was secure. Ryan was pale, understanding without being told that something had happened. "It's over," Tank told him. "Marcus Webb was the last one. He's in custody. Everyone who hurt you, everyone who threatened you, they're all either arrested or gone." "For real this time?" Ryan asked, his voice small. "For real." Ryan's face crumpled and he started crying. Not scared tears like before, but relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. Mrs. Castellano pulled him close, crying too, and Lily wrapped her arms around both of them. Tank turned away, giving them privacy, and found himself looking out the window at the quiet street. Normal houses, normal lives, people who'd finally been freed from Frank's shadow. "We did it," Ridge said quietly beside him. "Yeah," Tank agreed. "We did." They stayed until dark, until Ryan stopped crying and managed a shaky smile. Until Mrs. Castellano made them promise again to come back, to stay in touch, to be part of their lives. "You're family now," she said simply. "Like it or not." Tank found he didn't mind. Not at all. 3 weeks later, Tank's phone rang at 2 in the morning. He answered on the second ring, already sitting up, already awake. "Tank," Ryan's voice thick with panic. "Someone's outside our house." Tank was on his feet, pulling on jeans. "Where are you?" "Upstairs with Mom and Lily. We're in Mom's room with the door locked, and I can hear them downstairs. Breaking things." "How many?" "I don't know. 2, maybe 3. Tank, I'm scared." "I know. Stay where you are. Don't open that door for anyone except me or the police. I'm calling this in right now, and we're on our way." He hung up, immediately dialed Morrison while pulling on his boots. She answered groggily. "Detective, it's Tank. Someone's breaking into the Castellano house right now. Ryan and his family are barricaded upstairs." Morrison's voice sharpened instantly. "I'm dispatching units now. ETA 8 minutes. We'll be there in 12. He pounded on Cutter's door, then Ridge's. They were staying at a motel on the edge of Dust Haven, had been for the past 3 weeks, checking on Ryan and Katie daily. The threat was supposed to be over. Frank's organization dismantled every dangerous player accounted for. Supposed to be. They made it to the Castellano house in 11 minutes, bikes roaring through empty streets. 2 police cruisers were already there, lights flashing, officers surrounding a figure on the front lawn. Tank recognized him immediately, even from a distance. Brandon Kowalski. He was supposed to be in jail. Assault charges working for a criminal enterprise, multiple counts. Bail had been denied. How the hell is he out? Ridge demanded. They found out fast. Morrison arrived seconds later, fury on her face. Processing error, she spat. Someone at the county jail marked his paperwork as processed and released. By the time they realized the mistake, he was gone. That was 6 hours ago. Brandon was screaming as the officers cuffed him, his voice raw and desperate. He ruined everything. That little snitch destroyed my life. I had a future, I had plans, and he took it all. Tank pushed past the police line, got right in Brandon's face. You destroyed your own life when you decided to beat up a kid. Brandon lunged at him, or tried to, but the officers held him back. I'm gonna kill him. You hear me? I'm gonna kill Ryan Castellano if it's the last thing I do. That's a terroristic threat, Morrison said coldly. Add it to the charges. Get him out of my sight. They dragged Brandon to a cruiser, still screaming threats, still trying to break free. Tank watched until the car pulled away, then turned to the house. The front door was smashed, hanging off its hinges. Inside, furniture was overturned, pictures knocked off walls. Brandon had been here maybe 5 minutes, but he'd done damage. Tank, Ryan's voice from upstairs, followed by footsteps thundering down. The kid crashed into him, wrapped his good arm around Tank's waist, pressed his face against his chest. He was shaking violently, couldn't seem to stop. I thought he was gonna... He didn't, Tank said firmly, holding him steady. He's gone. He's arrested. He's never getting out again. Mrs. Castellano appeared at the top of the stairs, Lily clinging to her. Both of them looked shell-shocked. How did he get out? Mrs. Castellano asked, her voice hollow. They said he'd be in jail until trial. They promised. Someone made a mistake, Morrison said, coming inside Fawn. A huge, unforgivable mistake. But he's back in custody now, and I guarantee you he's not getting released again. I'm personally overseeing his case from here on out. That's not good enough, Mrs. Castellano said, and there was steel in her voice now, anger replacing fear. My children were terrorized tonight. Again. How many times are we supposed to go through this? How many times are we supposed to believe it's finally safe? Morrison didn't have an answer. Nobody did. Tank looked at Ryan, still shaking in his arms, and made a decision. Pack a bag, he told Mrs. Castellano. All of you. You're not staying here tonight. Where? Our motel. We've got 2 rooms. You and Lily take one, Ryan takes the other with us. Just for tonight, just until we can figure something out. We can't impose. You're not imposing. You're accepting help from family. That's what you said, right? We're family. Mrs. Castellano's face crumpled for a second, then she nodded. Okay, thank you. They packed quickly, just over night bags and essentials. Lily clutched a stuffed rabbit, her eyes huge and scared. Ryan moved mechanically, not really present, probably in shock. At the motel, Mrs. Castellano and Lily settled into Tank's room, while the 4 of them, Tank cut a ridge and Ryan crowded into the other. It was tight, but nobody complained. Ryan sat on the edge of one bed, staring at nothing. Tank pulled up a chair, sat facing him. Talk to me, kid. I heard him breaking the door, Ryan said quietly. Heard him screaming my name. Heard him say he was going to kill me, kill all of us, and I froze, couldn't move, couldn't think. If you hadn't called the police, if they hadn't gotten there in time, but they did, and you did the right thing. You called me, you got your family to safety, you protected your mom and sister. That takes courage. I don't feel courageous. I feel terrified. Courage isn't not being scared, Cutter said from across the room. It's being scared and doing what needs to be done anyway. You did that? Ryan looked at him, then back at Tank. When does it stop? When do I get to stop being scared? Tank wished he had a good answer. I don't know, but I know this every day it gets a little easier. Every day you're a little stronger, and eventually the fear becomes manageable. It doesn't go away, but it stops controlling you. How do you know? Because I've been where you are, Tank said quietly. Different circumstances, but same fear. I was 14 when my old man came after my mom with the baseball bat. I called the cops, testified against him, got him sent to prison. And for years after I was scared, he'd get out, come back, finish what he started. Ryan's eyes widened. Did he? He tried, got released when I was 18, showed up at our house drunk and angry. But by then I wasn't a scared kid anymore. I'd learned to fight, learned to protect myself. And when he came at me, I put him down and called the cops myself. He went back to jail and I never saw him again. So it does get better. It does. Not perfect, but better. You learn to live with the fear instead of letting it live inside you. Ryan absorbed some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Will you teach me to fight like you said? Yeah, tomorrow if you want. We'll start with basics. I want to start now. Tank glanced at the clock, 3:15 in the morning. Ryan, it's the middle of the night. I don't care. I can't sleep anyway, please. I need to do something. Need to feel like I'm not helpless. Tank looked at Cutter, who shrugged. Kid's got a point. Adrenaline's still pumping. Might as well channel it into something useful. So at 3:30 in the morning in a motel parking lot, Tank began teaching Ryan Castellano how to fight. They started simple basic stance, how to make a proper fist, how to put weight behind a punch. Ryan's broken arm was still in a cage, so they focused on his good side, on footwork, on awareness. Fighting's not about being the toughest, Tank explained. It's about being smart, knowing when to engage, when to run, when to talk your way out. Violence is always the last option, but when it's the only option, you better be ready. Ryan absorbed everything like he was dying of thirst, and Tank was offering water. They worked for an hour until Ryan was sweating and breathing hard but no longer shaking. Better, Tank asked. Yeah, actually, Ryan wiped his face. I feel I don't know, less powerless. Good, we'll do this every day if you want. Build up your strength, your confidence. By the time that cast comes off, you'll be ready to use both hands. They went back inside to find Mrs. Castellano awake, sitting in the doorway between rooms. I heard you outside, she said. Thank you for helping him. He's helping himself, Tank said. We're just guiding him. She smiled, tired but genuine. You're good with him. Natural. You ever think about having kids of your own? The question caught Tank off guard. No, never seemed like something I'd be good at. You're wrong, she said simply. You're exactly what Ryan needs right now. A strong, stable male presence who isn't broken by this town, who shows him there's another way to be a man. Tank didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. The rest of the night passed quietly. Ryan finally crashed around 5 exhausted. The others dozed in shifts, somebody always awake and alert. Morning came too fast. Morrison called at 7. Brandon's lawyer is trying to get the charges dropped, claiming his client was having a mental health crisis and needs treatment, not prison. Tank felt rage flash hot and immediate. He broke into their house, threatened to kill them. That's not a mental health crisis, that's premeditated assault. I agree, and I'm fighting it. But Tank, you need to prepare the Castellanos for the possibility that this goes to trial, that Ryan might have to testify. He'll do it, Tank said, looking at Ryan sleeping fitfully on the bed. Kid's stronger than people think. But when Ryan woke up and Tank explained the situation, the fear came flooding back. I can't, Ryan said immediately. I can't sit in a courtroom with Brandon staring at me. I can't. You can, Tank said firmly, and I'll be right there with you, every step of the way. What if I freeze? What if I can't speak? Then we'll deal with it. But Ryan, if I don't testify, Brandon might walk. He might get out and come after you again. The only way to stop him permanently is to face him in court and tell the truth. Ryan looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly, looked at Lily, still clutching her rabbit, looked back at Tank. Okay, he whispered. I'll do it. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. Tank spent that time working with Ryan, daily combat training in the morning's testimony prep in the afternoons. Morrison coached him on what to expect, how to answer questions, how to stay calm under pressure. Katie joined them after a few days, still healing, but determined. If Ryan's testifying, so am I, she said. Brandon hurt both of us. We face him together. The two of them formed a bond, united by trauma and survival. They practiced their testimonies together, supported each other when the memories got too heavy. You're building something good here, Cutter observed one afternoon, watching Ryan and Katie work through their statements. These kids are going to be okay. Maybe, Tank said, if the system doesn't fail them. But the system tried to fail them spectacularly. 3 days before the hearing, Tank got a call from an unknown number. Mr. Tank, a woman's voice, professional but urgent. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm an investigative journalist with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. I've been following the Dust Haven case and I need to talk to you about Judge Harmon. Who's who? The judge assigned to Brandon Kowalski's case, Judge Robert Harmon. He's on Frank Delacroix's payroll, has been for years. Tank felt ice in his veins. You got proof of that? I've got documentation showing payments from shell corporations linked to Frank going back 5 years. I've got testimony from other defendants who say Harmon threw their cases in exchange for money. And I've got a source inside the courthouse saying Harmon plans to dismiss all charges against Brandon at the preliminary hearing. Morrison know about this. I called her first. She's pulling Harmon's financial records now, but it takes time. The hearing's in 3 days. By the time they build a case to remove him from the bench, Brandon could be free. Tank's mind raced. What do you need from me? I need Ryan to go on record, public statement about what Brandon did, what Frank's organization did. I need to publish this story before that hearing puts so much public pressure on the court that they can't sweep it under the rug. That puts a target on Ryan's back. Makes him even more visible. He's already got a target, Sarah said bluntly. At least this way the whole state will be watching. Harder to make someone disappear when everyone knows their name. Tank hated it. Hated exposing Ryan to more danger, more scrutiny. But she was right. If Harmon was corrupt, if he was planning to free Brandon, they needed leverage. I'll talk to Ryan and his mother. It's their decision. He explained everything to Mrs. Castellano, first laid out the risks and benefits. What do you think we should do? She asked. Honestly, I think we let Ryan decide. He's been through hell, but he's stronger than anyone gives him credit for. If he wants to fight back, we support him. If he wants to stay quiet, we find another way. Ryan didn't hesitate. I'll do it. I'll talk to the reporter. You're sure? Tank asked. Once this story publishes, everyone's gonna know your name. You won't be anonymous anymore. I don't want to be anonymous, Ryan said, his voice stronger than Tank had ever heard it. I want Brandon to know I'm not scared anymore. I want everyone who thinks they can hurt kids and get away with it to know that we fight back. The interview happened in that afternoon. Sarah Chen was professional, compassionate, but thorough. She asked about the beating, the threats, Brandon's break-in. She asked about Frank's organization, about the corruption, about the terror that had gripped Dust Haven for 20 years. Ryan answered every question. Katie sat beside him, adding her own story, her own pain. When it was over, Sarah thanked them both. You're incredibly brave, both of you. This story is going to change things. The article published the next morning, front page of the Review Journal's website. Dust Haven teens speak out inside the corruption and terror of Frank Delacroix's criminal empire. It went viral within hours. Local news picked it up, then state news, then national. Ryan's face was everywhere, the 18-year-old who'd survived multiple attacks who was now fighting back against a corrupt system. The response was overwhelming. Messages of support flooded in. People across the state called for Judge Harmon's removal. The Judicial Oversight Board announced an emergency investigation. But there was a darker response too. Threats came in through social media, anonymous messages, promising violence, promising to finish what Brandon started. Morrison assigned protective detail to the Castellano house, 2 officers around the clock. Tank and his brothers stayed close, too hyper-vigilant, watching for any sign of danger. The preliminary hearing arrived in a circus of media attention. News vans lined up outside the courthouse. Protesters held signs, some supporting Ryan and Katie, others claiming it was all a witch hunt. Inside, Judge Harmon looked furious at the scrutiny, but couldn't dismiss the case with cameras rolling and reporters watching every move. The hearing proceeded. Brandon sat at the defense table, his lawyer beside him, looking smug. He kept staring at Ryan, trying to intimidate him. Ryan stared back, unflinching. When Ryan took the stand, his voice was steady. He recounted everything: the initial beating, the death threats, the break-in. Brandon's lawyer tried to rattle him, suggested Ryan was exaggerating, that he'd provoked Brandon. Did I provoke him by talking to Katie in the library? Ryan asked, his voice calm. Did I provoke him by existing, by refusing to be scared? The courtroom was silent. Katie testified next, equally strong, equally clear. By the time she finished, Brandon's smug expression had cracked. Judge Harmon had no choice. With the media watching, with the state attorney general in attendance, with protesters outside chanting for justice, he bound Brandon over for trial on all charges. Bail is denied, Harmon said, his voice tight. Defendant is remanded to custody pending trial. Brandon exploded, screaming as officers grabbed him. This isn't over. You hear me, Ryan? This isn't over. But the judge's gavel came down and Brandon was dragged away, still screaming. Outside, reporters mobbed Ryan and Katie. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward. Tank stayed close, ready to intervene, but Ryan handled it. Answered questions, stayed composed, thanked everyone for their support. "What's next for you?" a reporter asked. Ryan looked at Tank, then back at the cameras. "Next, I heal. I go back to school. I live my life. Because that's what you do when you survive, you live." The crowd erupted in applause. That night, back at the motel, Ryan finally broke down. The adrenaline faded, the reality of everything hit him, and he cried harder than Tank had ever seen. "I thought I could be strong," Ryan sobbed. "I thought I could handle it, but I'm so tired. I'm so tired of being scared of fighting, of always looking over my shoulder." Tank held him while he cried, let him get it all out. When Ryan finally quieted, exhausted, Tank spoke. "You are strong. You showed that today. But being strong doesn't mean you never break. It means you break and then you put yourself back together. You keep going." How do you keep going when everything hurts? You remember why you're fighting. You remember your mom, your sister. You remember Katie. You remember every kid in the Dust Haven who watched you stand up and thought maybe they could stand up too. You're not just fighting for yourself anymore, Ryan. You're fighting for all of them. Ryan wiped his eyes, nodded slowly. Yeah, okay. Morrison called an hour later with news that made Tank smile for the first time all day. Judge Harmon's been removed from the bench pending investigation. The state bar is reviewing his entire case history, and the Attorney General's office is taking over Brandon's prosecution personally. They're throwing everything at him: assault, battery, terroristic threats, breaking and entering, attempted murder. He's looking at 20 to 30 years minimum. Good on, Tank said. What about the rest of Frank's people, though? Trials are scheduled over the next 6 months. Frank's cooperating on all of them, testifying against his own organization. The whole thing's coming down, Tank, because you stopped to help one kid at a gas station. When Tank hung up, he found Ryan and his family gathered in the adjoining room, all of them looking at him. "What?" Tank asked. "We've been talking," Mrs. Castellano said, "and we need to say thank you for everything, for saving Ryan, for protecting us, for teaching him to be strong. You changed our lives." "You changed your own lives," Tank said. You were there when nobody else was," Ryan interrupted. "You cared when you didn't have to. That matters. That means everything." Lily came forward, held out her pinky. "You kept your promise. You kept Ryan safe." Tank hooked his pinky with hers, felt his throat tighten. "Yeah, kid, I kept my promise." "Can we keep you?" Lily asked seriously. "Forever," Tank laughed, surprised by the emotion that welled up. Yeah, you can keep me." Mrs. Castellano smiled through tears. "We'd like that. We'd really like that." That night, Tank stood outside the motel looking up at the stars and felt something shift inside him. He'd spent most of his life running from connection, from responsibility, from anything that looked like family. But here in this dying Nevada town, he'd found something he didn't know he was looking for. Purpose, belonging, a reason to be more than just a biker passing through. His phone buzzed, a text from Razor. "Heard about the hearing. You did good, real good. Chapter's proud of you." Tank smiled, typed back, "Thanks, Prez." Another text, this time from Sarah Chen. "Follow-up story publishes tomorrow. Judge Harmon's been indicted. Frank's former associates are falling like dominoes. You started something big." He hadn't meant to start anything. Just wanted to help one scared kid. But somehow that one act of kindness had rippled outward, exposing corruption, dismantling a criminal empire, giving hope to people who'd thought they had none. The door behind him opened. Ryan stepped out, couldn't sleep either. "You okay?" Tank asked. "Yeah, just thinking about everything. I did everything." Ryan leaned against the wall beside him. "You know what the weirdest part is? A month ago, I was nobody. Just another scared kid in a town full of scared people. And now I'm on the news, people know my name, and Brandon's going to prison because I had the courage to speak up." "You always had that courage," Tank said. "You just needed someone to believe in you first." Ryan was quiet for a moment. "Thank you for believing in me. Thanks for proving me right." They stood together in comfortable silence, looking at the stars, and Tank felt peace settle over him. The fight wasn't over. Brandon's trial was still coming. Frank's organization still had loose ends, and there would always be new threats, new dangers. But for now, in this moment, they were safe. They were together, they were family, and that was enough. 6 months passed before Brandon's trial finally began, and in that time, everything changed. Ryan started his senior year at Dust Haven High, but he wasn't the same scared kid anymore. He walked the hallways with his head up, spoke in class, even joined the debate team. Other students watched him with a mixture of awe and respect, the kid who'd taken down Frank Delacroix's empire. But not everyone was happy about it. Tank got the call on a Tuesday afternoon, 2 weeks before the trial was set to begin. Ryan's voice was tight with controlled panic. "There's a new kid at school, transfer student. Says his name is Danny Martinez, but Tank, I swear I've seen him before. With Frank's crew. I think he's been sent to watch me." Tank was in his bike within minutes, Cutter beside him. They'd moved to Dust Haven permanently 3 months ago, rented a small house on the edge of town. Razor had been surprisingly supportive, said the Silver Butte chapter could use a presence in the area, keep an eye on things after Frank's fall. They arrived at the school just as classes were letting out. Ryan stood by the front entrance trying to look casual but failing. His eyes kept darting to a cluster of students near the parking lot. "Which one?" Tank asked quietly. "Green jacket, dark hair. He's been following me all day. Sits behind me in English. Showed up at my locker between classes, asked about the trial." Tank studied the kid, 17, maybe 18, with a hardness around his eyes that didn't match his age. Yeah, that was Frank's crew, all right. Tank had seen enough of them to recognize the type. "Stay here," Tank said. He approached the kid directly, didn't bother with subtlety. "Danny Martinez, right?" The kid's eyes flickered with recognition, then carefully blanked. "Who's asking?" "Someone who knows you're not here for an education." "Who sent you what's left of Frank's organization?" Danny's face hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a student." "Yeah, then you won't mind if I call the principal, have them verify your enrollment paperwork. Check where you transferred from. Call your parents." Something shifted in Danny's expression, fear quickly masked. "Look, man, I don't want trouble." "Then stop following Ryan. Stop asking about the trial. Stop pretending you're something you're not." "I can't," Danny said, and there was desperation in his voice now. "They said if I don't report back, they'll hurt my sister. She's 12. They know where she goes to school, where she lives. I don't have a choice." Tank felt his anger shift towards something more complex. Another kid being used as a weapon controlled through fear. "Who's they?" Tank demanded. "I don't know names. Just got a call 3 weeks ago, said I needed to transfer to Dust Haven. Keep an eye on Ryan Castellano, report on what he's doing, who he's talking to. They paid my tuition, set up the fake transfer paperwork. Said it was just surveillance, nothing violent. Until they decide they want something more than surveillance," Cutter said, coming up behind them. "Until they tell you to hurt him." Danny's face went pale. "I wouldn't, I'm not." "You're a scared kid being manipulated," Tank said. "Just like Ryan was, just like a lot of kids in this town were. But Danny, you gotta make a choice right now. You keep working for these people, and you're gonna end up in prison or worse. Or you help us, and we protect you and your sister." "You can't protect us. These people, they're everywhere. They know things, they have connections." "So do we," Tank said flatly. "And we've already taken down one criminal empire. We can handle whatever's left." Danny looked between them, weighing his options, clearly terrified. "My sister," he said finally. "You swear you'll keep her safe." "I swear," Tank said. "Tell me everything." Danny talked fast, words tumbling out like he'd been waiting to confess. He gave them phone numbers, described the man who'd contacted him. Middle-aged scar on his left hand, drove a silver Lexus. Said the man claimed to be Frank's former accountant, that he was trying to rebuild what was left of the organization. He said Frank was weak for cooperating with the police. Said Frank betrayed them all. Said they need to send a message that snitches don't get to live happily ever after. Tank felt cold settle in his chest. "They're planning to kill Ryan." "I don't know. Maybe. They didn't tell me specifics, just said to watch him report his routines. But yeah, that's what I figured." Tank immediately called Morrison. She listened without interrupting, then swore viciously. "Frank warned us about this. Said some of his former associates wouldn't go quietly. We've been trying to track them down, but they've gone underground. This accountant, Gerald Voss. We have a warrant out for him, but he's been ghost." "Not anymore," Tank said. "We've got a phone number, description, possible vehicle, and we've got Danny willing to cooperate." Bring him in. Now, we'll get him and his sister into protective custody before Voss realizes he flipped. They took Danny straight to the police station. His sister Maria was picked up from her middle school by uniformed officers who explained she was being taken somewhere safe. The reunion between siblings was tearful and terrified, but Morrison promised them both that no one would hurt them. "You did the right thing," she told Danny. "The brave thing. Now we're going to finish this." The plan was simple. Danny would continue checking in with Voss, feeding him false information, while the police tracked his calls and built a case. Ryan would be kept under heavy protection. His routines varied, his locations unpredictable. But Tank knew simple plans rarely survived contact with reality. 3 days later, reality hit hard. Tank was at Ryan's house helping him prepare for his testimony when his phone rang. Unknown number, which usually meant trouble. "Yeah," he answered. "Tank," a man's voice smooth and cold. "My name is Gerald Voss. I believe you have been interfering with my business." Tank's hand tightened on the phone. "Your business is over. Frank's organization is done." "Frank's organization, yes, but I'm building something new, something better, and I don't appreciate you turning my people against me. Young Danny, for instance. That was very unfortunate. If you touch that kid, relax. I'm not interested in Danny anymore. He's already proven himself worthless. No, I'm interested in sending a different message, one that can't be ignored." "What message?" "That people who destroy what others build face consequences. Frank cooperated with the police because you convinced him to. Ryan Castellano testified because you gave him courage. Katie Marsh spoke up because you made her think she could be safe. You're the catalyst for everything that happened. So you're the one who needs to pay." Tank felt his blood run cold. "You want me? Fine. Name the place." "Oh, I don't want to kill you, Tank. That would be too easy, too quick. No, I want to hurt you the way you hurt me. I want to take away what you care about." The line went dead. Tank's mind raced. What he cared about. Ryan, Katie, Mrs. Castellano, and Lily. The whole family he'd built here. "Cutter," he yelled. "Get everyone together now. Voss just threatened." His phone rang again. Mrs. Castellano, her voice shaking. "Tank, Lily didn't come out of school. The teacher said she was picked up early, said I'd called and authorized it. But I didn't. Tank, I didn't call. Someone took my daughter." The world tilted sideways. Tank forced himself to stay calm, to think. "Call Morrison. Tell her everything. We're coming to you now," he explained to Cutter and Ridge as they ran for their bikes. Lily was gone, taken by someone who knew enough to forge a parent pickup. Voss had her, had to be Voss. Morrison met them at the school, her face grim. "We've got an Amber Alert going out now. Every officer in 3 counties is looking for her. But Tank, she's been gone for 2 hours. He could be anywhere." "He'll call," Tank said with certainty. "He didn't take her to kill her. He took her to leverage her, to make us do something." His phone rang right on cue. Voss again. "I have the girl," Voss said without preamble. "Lily Castellano, 7 years old, very brave, keeps asking when her mommy's coming. It's quite touching." Tank put the phone on speaker so Morrison could hear. "What do you want?" "I want Ryan Castellano to recant his testimony. I want him to stand up in court next week and say he lied, that Brandon never touched him, that the whole thing was made up. I want Katie Marsh to do the same, and I want Frank Delacroix to stop cooperating with the police." "That's not going to happen." "Then Lily dies. Simple as that. You have 24 hours to convince them. After that, I'll send you pieces of her until you comply." "You hurt her," Tank said, his voice deadly calm, "and I will spend the rest of my life hunting you. There won't be a hole deep enough, a country far enough. I will find you and I will end you." Voss laughed. "Brave words, but ultimately empty. 24 hours, Tank. Make them count." The line went dead again. Mrs. Castellano collapsed when they told her. Ryan caught her, held her while she sobbed. His face was white, shocked, but also hardening with determination. "I'll do it," he said immediately. "I'll recant. I'll say whatever he wants. Just give me my sister back." "No," Tank said. "What?" Ryan stared at him. "Tank, he has Lily. He'll kill her if we don't. If you recant, Brandon goes free. Frank stops cooperating. All his associates get away with everything they did. And then what? You think Voss just gives Lily back and disappears?" He'll keep using her as leverage forever. He'll own you. I don't care, she's my sister. I know, Tank said, gripping Ryan's shoulders, and we're getting her back. But not by giving Voss what he wants. We find her, we get her out, and then we end this permanently. Morrison was already on her phone coordinating with her team. We're tracking Voss's call now, might be able to triangulate a location. How long? Cutter asked. Hours, maybe more. These guys aren't amateurs. Tank's mind raced through options, discarding most of them as too risky. Then something Danny had said came back to him. The accountant. Voss was Frank's accountant. That means he knows all of Frank's properties, all his safe houses. Morrison caught on immediately. Frank gave us a list of properties, but he might have missed some or lied about some. I'll call the prison, have them bring Frank to a phone. Frank sounded tired when he came on the line, but his voice sharpened when Morrison explained the situation. Voss has the little girl Lily. He was quiet for a moment. There's a property I didn't tell you about. Old hunting cabin about 40 miles north of Dust Haven up in the mountains. I kept it off the books, used it as a personal retreat. Only 3 people knew about it, me, my ex-wife, and Voss. If he's hiding somewhere, that's where. You're sure? Morrison asked. No, but it's the only place that makes sense. Remote, off-grid, no neighbors for miles. Perfect place to hold someone. Morrison looked at Tank. We can have a tactical team there in 90 minutes. That's too long, Tank said. Voss is watching the news. He'll know we've mobilized. He might panic, might hurt her. So what do you suggest? We go now. Small team, fast bikes. We can make it in 40 minutes. That's insane. You don't know the layout, don't know how many people he has with him, don't know if he's even there. But if he is there and we wait 90 minutes, Lily might be dead by the time your tactical team arrives. I'm not willing to take that risk. Morrison stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but I'm coming with you, and we do this smart, not reckless. Tank Cutter Ridge and Morrison rode out 20 minutes later, armed and focused. Frank had given them directions, described the cabin's layout. Small 2 rooms, 1-door windows on 3 sides. The ride up the mountain was tense and silent. Tank's mind kept circling back to Lily's face, her absolute faith that he would keep her safe. He'd made a promise, hooked his pinky with hers. He wouldn't break it. Not now, not ever. They found the cabin exactly where Frank said it would be, tucked into a grove of pine trees, smoke rising from the chimney. One vehicle parked outside, a silver Lexus. That's Voss's car, Morrison confirmed quietly. He's here. They approached on foot, spreading out to cover all sides of the cabin. Through a window, Tank could see movement, a man's silhouette pacing, and smaller movement lower to the ground. Lily sitting in a chair, looking scared but unharmed. Tank's relief was sharp and immediate. She was alive. Now they just had to keep her that way. Morrison signaled she'd go to the front door, announce herself, give Voss a chance to surrender. If he refused, if he threatened Lily, they'd breach from all sides simultaneously. It was a good plan, a smart plan. It lasted exactly 30 seconds before everything went wrong. Voss must have seen them approaching or heard something because suddenly he was at the window with Lily, a gun pressed to her head. "Back off!" he screamed. "All of you back off, or I swear to God, I'll kill her." Lily's eyes found Tank through the glass, wide with terror, but also impossibly still trusting, still believing he'd save her. Voss, Morrison called out, her voice calm and professional. "There's no way out of this. You're surrounded. Let the girl go and we can talk." "Talk? There's nothing to talk about. You destroyed everything, my life, my business, my future, all because of that kid and his testimony." "This isn't about Ryan anymore," Morrison said. "This is about you making a choice. You can let Lily go and surrender face charges, but live. Or you can hurt her and guarantee you die here today. Your choice." Voss laughed, a desperate, unhinged sound. "You think I care about dying? You took everything that mattered. What's left?" Tank couldn't stay silent anymore. "Your life, Voss, your freedom, a chance to rebuild somehow. But if you hurt that little girl, there's no coming back. No second chances. You become the monster everyone thinks you are." "I'm already a monster," Voss said. "Frank saw to that. Taught me that money matters more than people, that power matters more than morality. And when he folded, when he betrayed us all, he proved that nothing matters. Nothing except survival." "Frank regrets what he became," Tank said. He's trying to make it right, trying to protect people like Lily. Don't make the same mistakes he did. Too late, Voss said. Way too late. And then he moved, shifting the gun from Lily's head to aim it at Tank through the window. Everything happened at once. Lily, small and brave and absolutely refusing to be helpless, twisted hard in her chair and bit down on Voss's arm. He screamed, his grip loosening for just a second. Cutter fired through the window, the glass exploding inward. The shot hit Voss in the shoulder, spinning him away from Lily. Tank crashed through the door ridge right behind him. They covered the distance to Lily in 3 steps, Tank scooping her up while Ridge secured Voss, who was bleeding and cursing, but alive. "You're okay," Tank said into Lily's hair, holding her tight. "You're okay, you're safe, I've got you." "I knew you'd come," Lily whispered. "I told the bad man you'd come. He didn't believe me, but I knew." Morrison was calling for medical and backup, checking Voss's wound, reading him his rights. Cutter secured the scene, making sure there were no other threats. Tank just held. Lily felt her small heart beating against his chest, felt her arms wrapped around his neck. "You kept your promise," she said. "You kept me safe." "Always," Tank said. "Always." The ride back to Dust Haven was slow and careful. Lily wrapped in a blanket in Morrison's car. By the time they arrived at the hospital, Mrs. Castellano was there, Ryan beside her. The reunion was everything. Mother and daughter crying, Ryan holding both of them, Tank standing back and watching, feeling something warm and complete settle in his chest. Mrs. Castellano looked up, saw him, and held out her hand. He took it, and she pulled him into the family embrace. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for bringing my baby back." "She saved herself," Tank said. "Bit Voss right when we needed an opening. Bravest thing I've ever seen." Lily beamed at that despite her tears. "I remembered what you taught Ryan, about fighting back, about not being helpless." "You did perfect," Tank said. Voss was arrested and charged with kidnapping, assault, attempted murder, and about 15 other crimes. He'd survive his gunshot wound just to face decades in prison. The remnants of Frank's organization scattered after that, realizing there was nothing left to rebuild, no empire worth dying for. Brandon's trial proceeded the following week. Ryan and Katie both testified calm and clear and unflinching. Brandon was convicted on all counts, sentenced to 25 years in prison. When the verdict was read, Ryan turned to Tank and smiled. Not a scared smile, not a hopeful smile, but a smile of pure relief and triumph. They'd won. Not just the trial, but everything. The war was over. 3 months later, Tank stood in the Castellano living room, watching Ryan open his college acceptance letters. UCLA-NYU, Boston University. All of them, yes, all of them with scholarships. "You did it," Tank said, pride thick in his voice. "You're getting out, seeing the world beyond Dust Haven." "Because of you, Key," Ryan said. "Because you showed me I could be more than just a scared kid in a dying town." "You were always more than that. I just helped you see it." Ryan hugged him, then sudden and fierce. "You're my family. You know that, right? Not just some biker who helped me. You're my family." Tank hugged him back, felt tears sting in his eyes. "Yeah, kid, I know. You're mine too." Lily ran in, then excited about something. She was 8 now, thriving, fearless in a way that would have been impossible a year ago. "Tank Mom says you're staying for dinner, and she's making pot roast." "Wouldn't miss it," Tank said. That night, sitting around the table with Mrs. Castellano, Ryan, and Lily, with Cutter and Ridge joining them, Tank felt something he'd never experienced before. Home. Not a place, but people. Not a house, but connection. He'd come to Dust Haven by accident, stopped at a gas station because he needed a break. And in the process of helping one scared kid, he'd found purpose for him, a reason to be better than he'd ever thought he could be. Ryan raised his glass of water in a toast. "To Tank, Cutter, and Ridge, for saving me, for protecting us, for showing us what courage looks like." "To family," Mrs. Castellano added. "To promises kept," Lily said, looking at Tank with absolute faith. Tank raised his own glass, looked around at these people who'd become his world. "To second chances, to doing what's right even when it's hard, to the family we choose." They drank together, laughed together, and Tank knew with absolute certainty that he'd found what he'd been searching for his whole life without knowing it. A place to belong, people to protect, a reason to wake up every morning and choose to be good, to be strong, to be the person others could rely on. He was Tank's Silver Butte chapter, and he'd saved a kid at a gas station because it was the right thing to do. And that one choice had changed everything, not just for Ryan, but for an entire town, and most importantly for himself. Some people spend their lives searching for meaning. Tank had found his on a hot afternoon in Nevada in the frightened eyes of an 18-year-old boy who just needed someone to believe in him. And he'd do it all again in a heartbeat, because that's what good men do. They show up. They stand up. They protect those who can't protect themselves. And they never, ever break a pinky promise to a 7-year-old girl who believes in heroes.